My evil school principal steals money from our school that is supposed to be used to fund our computers and puts that money in his own pocket instead. My dad, my teacher, and I find a way to save the school, working all through spring break to get the computers working. The evil principal announces that his son saved the school and is awarded a scholarship. Then the son breaks into my locker, steals my $2,500 laptop, and deletes all the camera footage evidence. I was at my breaking point. They wasted my entire spring break, stole my laptop, took all the credit from me, and even got my scholarship. So I decided to destroy the lives of everyone involved. I found a way to get the footage, prove the principal had been stealing money, and fought to get the scholarship that was rightfully mine. Here's how I got my revenge. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Written on mobile and I suck at English. This isn't a bully story. This guy never messed with me until this. These people have gone great lengths to find me. Blessed with a common name, I've avoided them. Attempts were made on my life, as in almost ran over. Someone tried to burn our house down, so please understand, I can't post anything that can lead these people to catch any hint as to where I am. I can't risk one of you finding these people and leading them to me. Here's the backstory. A long time ago in the year 2004, I attended a terrible high school. They cut costs on everything, and I mean everything but teacher wages. Only way to keep them. It was an alternative school. My father is in IT, information technology, so I was around computers all my life. This was a known fact. I'd constantly break into the school computers just to play Super Nintendo ROMs. Most of the time, nobody cared, and the computer lab teacher loved me because I'd constantly be repairing for her. Such a sweet lady. Anyway, our school had about 200 computers, and they all sucked. Not a single one was good. Well, there was one that I upgraded with my own parts to play games. Enter evil principal and his evil kid, me and Miss B. Evil principal was a cheap man and a jerk. He'd get me to repair electronics for him and not even pay or give me extra credit. The evil kid thought he was good at running computers. He just knew how to format. That's his solution to everything. The CPU running slow format. So the school did well in a statewide test. I'm talking no student got below a 90. And our state is stupid. So we got a huge grant to upgrade our computers. Now, being a cheap man, our teacher uses a sleazy computer shop and has them ordered. I offered to help, but the evil kid was already on the job. They ordered 250 new CPUs, and they are pretty decent. And the evil principal pockets the rest of the money from the fund. This comes up later. So the 250 CPUs are delivered, and Mrs. B and I get to work. Evil principal and the evil kid and their swarm go off for a family vacation as it's spring break. We give up our spring break because he threatens to fire Mrs. B if anything goes wrong. So after 50 CPUs, we were 2 days in. The cheap jerk cut the power to everything that wasn't important. I get to the front office to take a break and decide to boot up one of these bad boys because a secretary still worked and I could start data transferring. What I come to find out is that none of these have the operating system installed on them. That's right. No keys, no operating system, nothing. The cheap jerk elected not to get an operating system because it saved him $100 per machine. That stupid evil jerk. I run to Mrs. B and the fact that I was running meant that she knew something was up. I'm not a runny type of kid. Mrs. B said, "Oh God, what?" I said, "The evil principal didn't buy the operating system keys." She was dumbfounded, got up and exited. Suddenly, the overhead lights came on and we boot 60 CPUs to find not a single one had the operating system installed. Now she panics, and she is a by-the-books gal and calls the evil principal. I didn't get to hear much, but I caught the tail end. The evil principal doesn't see this as an emergency. He says, "I was with my family." Mrs. B says, "Sir, this is an emergency. We need the keys." The evil principal says,
"No money for keys, Mrs. B."
"Then no computers. You got yourself 250 paperweights."
"Well, that sounds like a you problem. Buy the keys yourself."
"I can't afford that. You know how much those are."
"Either I have running computers or I'll be buying a new computer teacher by Monday."
Click. Oh, I was pissed because I never saw Mrs. B cry. So I dialed my dad and asked for a solution as he was off, and he said he'd be right down. We set up, and my dad and his 3 IT crew show up. They were pissed too, but they had brewskis and brought the party to school. Now this wasn't a break the law plot. Just have some fun while doing a ton of free work as they were on vacation and we were going to be here for days. We had 30 disks of unnamed operating systems and my father's corporate key. His work gave him one for home use and he was ready to help. So 3 days later we had 250 computers set up, wired the whole school, wired network internet, updated all the school software, and installed everything. Brewskis were drunk and we camped in the school. We even watched movies off a projector. It was a blast. The next Monday, everyone came back from vacation to see shiny new computers. We spent the next 2 days assigning logins to the staff and students, teaching others to use the new systems. Mrs. B was hailed as a hero by staff and everyone knew that I helped. But now, the betrayal. You see, Mrs. B's deeds didn't go unnoticed and she was offered a fancy new job. She hated the evil principal and took it. Since she would no longer be teaching and there was only one computer class for stragglers, entitled principal let her go with no shade. 2 weeks before she left, she wrote a letter for a scholarship program the school offered for a tech school in their district. Think a high school for mega nerds. Gave copies to me, an evil principal, and departed, but in her absence, things started going south. The CPUs needed fixing, and an important note, locker theft started occurring bad. I'm talking so bad the superintendent installed cameras in the locker areas because parents were getting pissed. Now, we hold an assembly to honor the good students and all of that, and it's a well-known fact of my deeds and what I've done. The superintendent is there, the evil principal, evil kid, and his mom were there. My parents didn't have time. It was cool, I didn't care. They get down the list and then the story. How a teacher and a student gave up their vacation, how they rescued the school from an ordering error, lol, and how they wish the teacher was there to honor her, but they can honor the student in her place. I grinned that I was being praised by the man who I hated most. The evil principal said,
"Please, a round of applause to evil kid, my son, for saving the school's computers. Your actions have not gone unnoticed, as you've now gotten a full scholarship to the tech school."
I did not hear the rest as my world went red. My friend held me back as to not charge the stage. I was literally going to end those MFs with my bare hands. I do remember the booing. I left for the day. I was livid. They just took credit for my work, stole my scholarship, treated Mrs. B poorly, and thought that I would take it. Revenge wasn't enough. No, I was going to destroy them. Finally, the revenge. Weeks had passed by. I had exactly 1 month to do this with a group of 8 who knew the whole story, and we were literally the 8 smartest students. The Revenge Council was formed. We never met on school grounds, never at the same place twice, followed a strict set of rules, and formed our plan. They only helped me form the plan. I did the legwork. So, phase 1. Phase 1 was to destroy the evil kid. So I spoke with the super and I told him the story, how I was being robbed. He said I would need proof. That was easy, I already had it, but I needed time, so I said, let me collect it. He said he'd also look into it. I needed him to distract the evil principal. Now, I didn't have access to school functions, but Mrs. B did. I contacted her and explained what happened. She was pissed. She said come in and fix it, but I mentioned I needed to make sure this never happened again. Oh, that laugh of hers was so adorable. I crushed hard on her. She was beautiful. The Revenge Council now had our 9th member. I just needed one more thing, her login, and she happily provided. As long as there was no trail, cameras are now under my control. Now remember the locker thefts? Well, cruising the cameras we confirmed who we all thought the thief was, and guess who the culprit was? The evil kid had used the evil principal's login to access the locker combo sheet and was stealing things. He covered his tracks by deleting the camera footage. Not this time though, not this time. See, my dad had gotten a new laptop and gifted me his old one. This was at the time a $2,500 custom-made laptop. That thing was my main computer computer for years after this, but I had to risk it. So one day I brought it to school, showed it off, played some heavy graphics games. Evil kid buddied up to me. His eyes lit up. The bait was set. He followed me, talking video games, inviting me to his place for some game sessions as I'm walking up to my locker. He turns around as per school rules not to see my combination, and I place my laptop bag into my locker as my next class is PE and his was free study. Bait in the trap. He asks,
"Aren't you afraid of getting it stolen?"
I say, nah, my dad can always get another one from work, plus that, and I point to the camera.
"Yeah, those catch everything. Plus, I heard they caught the thief. Dad says when it's proven, he's gonna announce it."
I say, that's a relief. Get with me after school. I live close and we can walk home and game out. I leave the direction of PE, but it's not my class. I had free study. I stealth my way into the math class and tell the teacher I'm updating the CPUs, and he loves me and allows me and starts his class. I watch the cameras. 20 minutes later, the evil kid shows up with a garbage bag, pulls out a notebook, opens my locker, and grabs the laptop. He opens the bag to confirm it, pulls it out and places it in the garbage bag, grabs the mouse and the charger too, returns a laptop bag and leaves. He's wearing gloves. He thinks he's clever. I save the file, wait another 20 minutes, solve a math problem for the class, look to see, and the file for that area is deleted. I hide the copied files and restore them. Hiding was just a backup. I didn't need it, but I wanted a copy, to which I still have to this day. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2. At lunch, I go to the locker and pretend to discover my empty bag. I was with a council member. She runs to grab the school cop and they come. As they are real cops, he radios for a squad car, and I kid you not, 5 cars showed up and they locked it down. They were about to launch a locker search but decided to check the cameras. This was done in the evil principal's office, where evil kid happened to be playing games. Evil principal comes in and gives them access. Evil principal says for some reason the files are corrupt. It's a recent problem that we were fixing. Evil kid smirks, and cop says, "Alright, guide me to today's cameras and which one is in that area." Evil principal says,
"I think cam 6.
That was wrong, of course, and then the entitled kid said,
"Now it's cam 9.
"You dense jerk." But the cop says, "Here it is. I found it in the files fine." The evil kid goes white. I wish I could tell you what happens next, but I was excused as they found their culprit. Then I see evil kid and evil principal walk out with 2 police escorts, and I'm called back in. I get to see the footage. Cop 3 shows me that evil kid was the one who stole it. I act shocked. I'm good at acting too, sobbing slightly because he was my friend and how could he, etc., etc. 15 minutes later, he walks in and hands me the laptop.
"I'm so sorry. Please don't press charges. I just wanted to play it. I was gonna put it back."
The cop says it's out of his hands as the value was more than $1,000. "I'm afraid it's a felony. Charges will be filed. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." The entitled principal's face sunk. His boy was the school thief. He used his dad's login to get locker combinations and deleted the camera footage. They searched his house and found over $5,000 worth of stolen property in his room. He was in deep. But I wasn't done yet. Now it was evil principal's turn. This phase was not as long as I only had to do one thing. Word hadn't reached school yet. Evil principal covered his son with a coat as he was let out, and I was told not to say a word to anyone, but the superintendent was going to question me on the incident. After a long questioning session, he brings up the proof. I said yes, I had it, and presented a copy of the letter Mrs. B wrote. He reads it, his jaw drops, and he quickly calls her. After a brief phone call, a meeting was set up. Evil principal, the superintendent Chalmer, Mrs. B, and my dad all came. We explained what happened, how I gave up my entire week to save the school's computers, how my father came in and did free work, how this could have been prevented if evil principal wasn't so cheap. But as with all great plans, you can't plan for everything. I expected a sacking, but I got much, much more. You see, it came to light how much the budget was and how much was really spent. So where was the rest? It turns out the evil principal stole it. He skimmed off the top of a lot of the budgets, but he hid this one as he thought he could as well. I don't know the details to that, but 1, He used the excuse of the operating system keys. My dad piped up when he tried this. My dad said, I donated my personal corporate key and my super corporate key. It lets me install the operating system as many times as I want. It's how we didn't have to buy 250 keys. He explained to the superintendent and he was shocked. He showed the superintendent proof the key was his and pulled it up on the CPU to show how they were the same. The evil principal had no way out. I said, why didn't tech school get this letter? Evil principal in sob says,
I had to approve all the letters sent on the school's behalf. She no longer works here when it came time.
I said, nonsense. You had 2 weeks to send it. You just wanted to steal my scholarship for your thief of a kid. Every class on that floor heard me shout that. My dad and I left and the superintendent and evil principal were going to talk. My dad said, if my son doesn't get the scholarship by tomorrow, then remove my keys from all the school computers. Needless to say, phase 3 was complete. There were 2 weeks of school left. The scholarship was mine. The whole story came out anyway. It turns out he skimmed all the money he saved, and we spent the next 2 weeks without evil principal in sight. To be honest, I never learned his fate, but I know evil kids. The attack. It was the second last day of school. Evil kid was out on bail or something. He was expelled. He decided to wait for me in the parking lot. As I'm walking out, I see him. He sees me and I think he wants to apologize. Nope. He just stares at me and walks away. I shrug and walk a block away. 2 football jocks were across the street. Then I feel it. A blow to the back of my head. The entitled kid just sucker punched me and had me on the ground. I flipped to my back, and back then, well, it's low, I know, but I fought dirty. As he's on top of me winding up, I plant a knee right into his family jewels, smashing them. I went hard. He falls over and seethes in pain. I'm pissed though, but one of the jocks pulls me off, and I kid you not, the other says, "This is for my dead father's necklace," and stomps on his hand as hard as he could. He passes out and cops show up, the same ones as before, and now he gets the charges of assault and possession of a deadly weapon. He had a blade and was hauled off to ER. The fall caused me to twist an ankle and I was limping. After the dust clears, a few months go by and I find out he gets 10 years and I regret nothing. Should have just not stolen credit from my work. Some of you will say that I went too far. I want you to know you are correct. Do not mess with me. So, am I the jerk for how I got my revenge? That part at the end where the jocks come up and get involved really reminds you of how much this guy has probably stolen. Yeah, it was about $5,000 worth of stuff, but how do you quantify the value of sentimental things like this guy's dead father's necklace? And the whole thing was only possible because his dad was a principal, so he had access to being able to cover his tracks. A normal person wouldn't be able to get away with this. And after all of that, the original poster thought that this guy would somehow come up to him and apologize, which is pretty naive considering how manipulative this guy has been the entire time, even pretending to be his friend and saying, "Hey, let's go play games after we get out of school." Yeah, right after he steals your laptop from your locker. And then on top of all of that, the principal was embezzling money from the school, the place that usually needs money the most. Schools are generally underfunded, and this guy was just skimming off the top, and I wonder where his son learned how to act like that. If the principal was just casually embezzling money this entire time at the expense of the students of this school, you can only imagine what other types of things he does in front of his son, where his son would grow up to do something like this, try and pull off an elaborate, regular heist of going into people's lockers and stealing whatever he can find and then covering his tracks by deleting the footage. This was a pretty intense revenge. It was very detailed and specific as to exactly what went down and how it went down. One of the things I'm surprised by is how long the OP let it go after the award was given to the son instead of given to him. Most people wouldn't have had the restraint to devise this entire plan and wait, but the OP did that knowing that the alternative would be futile. There was no point in telling anybody about it because they would just keep asking for proof. And that's pretty much what happened when he did try. It's strange how a lot of times people in positions of power will end up being like this, or it's sort of this paradox because the only reason they're in that position is because of their tendency to be like this. For some people, there's obviously good eggs out there too. It's kind of the same thing as business where the most ruthless survive, and then who do you have at the top of everything? the most ruthless people. As always, if you guys have a story of your own, you're more than welcome to submit it via the link down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the second channel where you can hear some of my personal stories, also linked down below. But let me know how you see this story. What would you have done if you're in this situation? Do you think this was going too far, or was it justified? Jerk or not a jerk? And when you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories in this series, use the playlist at the top of the description. And next time you live stream, use the cream of the crop music. Search for Cream of the Stream on Spotify or whatever music platform you use for copyright-free music to use for your stream. It's free. Cream of the Stream. Either way, thanks a lot for listening. I'll see you guys next time.